The world is constantly changing, with rapid advances in technology and new knowledge being constructed. Today's learners and teachers are faced with no defined answers as to what exact skills and knowledge will be needed in the 21st century. Teachers need to prepare students to think critically about their world, anticipate problems, and contribute to their solutions. They need to prepare students for jobs that do not yet exist, and they need to teach skills to solve issues that are not yet known. This scenario demands a special kind of teaching and learning, the kind of learning that results in flexible thinkers who welcome change, who respect others and the world around them, who are enthusiastic about learning, and who have a strong desire for truth and justice. Teachers need to prepare students to become lifelong learners, risk-takers, problem solvers, and global-minded, action-oriented thinkers. They need to engage students in authentic learning experiences that extend far beyond the classroom. Today's learners need to become competent communicators who can understand, critically evaluate, manage, and ultimately produce and share information regardless of the technology that exists. They need to view themselves as positive global citizens who can make the world a better place. This webcast will introduce you to 3 teachers and highly respected field experts who will explore how best to prepare today's learners for tomorrow's world.
The 21st century is quite different than the 20th century in 3 ways. First, the economy and the workplace are changing dramatically as we move to a global, knowledge-based society. And many reports are now reflecting how complicated that change is. Second, the world is so complex now that no single person, no matter how smart they are, no matter how well educated they are, can fully understand wicked problems that we face, like global climate change. And so people need to learn to work in teams of complementary expertise. And third, most students will have multiple careers, and many of those careers don't yet exist. So how we prepare people for careers that don't yet exist in terms of the flexibility, their ability to cope with uncertainty, their emotional ability to face a future that's very open-ended. These are all big educational challenges.
So I think one of the challenges we have today is that there's a number of 21st century skills, they're called, that we really need young people to be able to have to be prepared for the workplace of the future. And those are things like media literacy, critical thinking, problem solving. The fact that we live in a world now where 100 or 200 pieces of email or correspondence in a day isn't unheard of. In fact, it's less than a lot of people get. So how can we prepare them to really be able to manage knowledge well and be effective and productive knowledge workers? So I think that's really the challenge we face, is being able to construct those skills and tying them into all the kind of assignments and projects and learning that we're conducting in schools. If we can build those 21st century skills in, we'll go a long way towards having our students prepared for an exciting and dynamic future.
So very broadly speaking, how we interact with information has altered enormously, and how we interact with each other has correspondingly altered enormously. And it's as a result of those 2 significant changes that I think educators need to be dealing with a different skill set. They need to be taking additional approaches to how they interact with their students. Now, this is not to say that we need to replace necessarily what we're currently doing in education, but it does mean that we need to augment what's happening with regard to the development of these additional challenges. One lady at a recent conference came up to me and after we were done talking about the changed nature of texting and writing with students today. And she said, well, the way I see it, and I know that was a very apt point, she said, I'm multilingual. I speak many different languages. Well, in order for me to learn French or to learn Spanish, I didn't have to abandon English or German. So it was the acquisition of a new skill. It was the notion of being multilingual that contributed to her overall development. So I think in a classroom context, we're dealing with similar issues. We still need core skills. We still need our students to learn key content areas. They still need to learn what this bone in the body is called, or what this particular formula in math or chemistry is called, or what this particular type of an ingredient might be. So they still need to learn those things. But they need to become multilingual in the sense of what's happening in the world today.
Teaching people how to learn rather than teaching them what they should learn. I think that the former will have a greater effect upon the latter than just teaching them static information, because today what is required to be successful in the modern world is students who can create knowledge, not students who can parrot back static information. And there is a substantial difference there.
Every individual has the power and responsibility to make a difference. In this segment, you'll meet a teacher who empowers her grade 6 students to feel that they can contribute to making their world a better place. Pamela Crawford engages her students in authentic, active learning that focuses on relevant topics of interest. You'll see her students engaged in collaborative learning, reflection, and problem solving.
Today's learner and teachers are faced with no defined answers as to what exact skills will be needed in the 21st century. We do know that teachers need to prepare students to understand, critically evaluate, manage, and ultimately produce information in a global environment that is awash with instant, growing, and changing information. In short, today's learner is tomorrow's global citizen. In fact, in many cases, we see today's students are being given opportunities to already view themselves as positive global citizens. Today's classroom needs to teach skills and strategies that will help students see that their daily learning is relevant to them personally, to their local community, and even the global community. Students will evaluate text and media images, talk accountably, read, write, and present through various mediums, all with the goal of empowering them to be solution-oriented. I will engage students in short, focused lessons based on ongoing assessment and curriculum outcomes. This webcast demonstrates the benefits, roles, and values of integrating technology and digital literacies into the classroom to enhance student outcomes. It also demonstrates how students can voice a strong message through mediums such as podcasting, and that these messages have a strong potential to reach a wide, if not global, audience.
If I continue to waste fresh water from a bottle or from the tap, it will affect me in the future.
Within this literacy block, you will see much student collaboration. It is critical that today's learners have multiple daily opportunities to talk, create, evaluate, and assess their own learning. We know that most workplace innovations are a result of a collaborative process. We need only to look at the rise of social networking to recognize that this is how we are evolving in our everyday world. While the computers are traditionally used as a research tool, they are increasingly becoming a primary writing tool.
I feel that this the computer experience helps us because it's a different way to learn and it's a different perspective on how you can learn.
Immediate access to the computer increases the opportunities for students to immediately apply new strategies that are taught in the shared or guided reading sessions. They offer an immediate connection from reading to writing. and I want you to make some of those corrections that we talked about. So whether it's a new headline or a change in a font, and then they'll be pretty much ready to be published completely. Okay?
No, I just really liked your headline.
Okay. I think that these are beautifully laid out and they want me to read, and I want to read more. Thank you. We noticed the students will search out multiple opportunities to test new learning. For instance, during our research on water issues, students immediately Googled other photos of water bottles and landfills and began to utilize and apply their new knowledge and vocabulary. Using vocabulary elicited from this unit as well as predetermined vocabulary, the Word Study Center offers focused practice on specific skills. When assembling the print resources for a unit, I have to keep basic considerations in mind, such as, are there multiple opinions and perspectives and treatments of the topic? Do the texts offer multiple entry points for the students? And do they mimic or support my teaching focus? In my guided reading and writing lessons, I accommodate up to 6 students. Materials are readily available and sessions last 5 to 20 minutes. In order to provide for guided reading and writing, students need to have established routines and expectations for work production while I am engaged in small group or individual sessions.
You're going to have your podcasts, you have your newspaper front page to work on, you have your posters to work on. So the creation station will be here. If you should be done everything, you may move to the word knowledge station. Over here it's word sort, it's in the envelope as normal. And also, we have a couple of people who are going to be taking the tap water challenge. We will let you know as that happens. So, does everybody have something that needs to be completed?
The implementation of a few work centers within the room allows for students to quietly work through various objectives. Having the opportunity to independently plan and move throughout these centers in a self-guided, independent manner allows children to prioritize and self-determine their own learning needs. The pace and scope of each center is differentiated to meet the needs of the individual learners. Of course, this is not completely up to the student. Through ongoing assessment, I am continually guiding each child through identified critical learnings. At each of the centers, I ensure that I provide a variety of entry points or opportunities for differentiation for each outcome. I might have graphic organizers or any type of assistive device that ensures that each student meets with success. Further, these centers encourage the use of accountable talk and communication. When technology is involved, I find that the students will teach each other in a quick and concise way. In essence, I provide scaffolded levels of self-directed learning. This authentic and meaningful learning will serve their lifelong needs. I also find that these centers provide an opportunity to demonstrate the character development that I model, develop, and sustain. After all, global mindedness begins when we can be mindful and respectful of our fellow learners. Today's students will be evaluating an image and a fact page. They have previously been introduced to global water issues through literature provided by our local municipality, books on global warming, the environment, and powerful stories such as Ryan's Well and One Well, the story of water on Earth. I begin with the photo and ask the students, what techniques has the photographer used in this photograph to engage or influence the viewer? Students engage in accountable talk and partners as they respond and evaluate the text.
I thought the first picture was the field because it was really far out.
Make them like into something like something made out of hard plastic.
Okay.
Like make them useful.
As a whole group, we brainstorm the conclusions that can be drawn from the events or information presented in the text. The conversation turns to discussing why students think it is important for people to know about this topic. Given the needs of some of the learners in my classroom, I have already written jot notes on a few stickies that will help guide or scaffold their thinking. Differentiating my instruction in this way helps focus their attention and allows them to contribute in a meaningful way.
For example, all these websites show that 2.5 million water bottles are being thrown out in every hour. So why don't they just stop making them if everybody knows?
I think maybe the next thing we could do in the future was make something to either break down the plastic water bottles or stop creating something that's just going to damage our Earth in the future. And what we're going to become is whatever our Earth is becoming. So
wonderful.
I feel that is going to affect all of us.
Yeah, and how did you feel when you learned that information, that you were paying 1,000 times more for that water bottle than it is for out of the tap? And we compared that to the Wii. Would you pay 1,000 times more for a Wii system because it comes in a plastic bag or not? How did you feel?
I kind of felt ripped off because we're spending our money for like really nothing except for tap water. We could just get it from our tap for cheaper.
I've got to begin with.
Okay, so where does that bring you, that word to begin with in this image?
I'd say I would start with to begin with the solution.
Ah.
We could ban the bottle, like how we have for other things that we've done.
Wonderful.
Since we have begun this unit on water, we have been bombarded with facts, so much so that it becomes impossible to truly evaluate and synthesize the volume of information.
Today we're going to take a look at a new graphic organizer, and we're going to be thinking about one of the facts that has been presented to you. Since we began this unit, we've had literally hundreds of new facts come at us.
This lesson, called Fact Impact, is designed to help students slow down and critically examine just one impactful fact. While we could use any of the facts presented in our unit, I will focus on one from yesterday's shared reading. It takes 1,000 years for water bottles to break down. This lesson uses a graphic organizer to guide students through a critical process of examining facts discovered in various media.
Bailey?
As there could be many different ways people tell it, and it might be an exaggeration or it could be not even real.
Okay.
We begin by uncovering the source and then checking it against another source. Following that, we determine reliability, especially if it was a web-based site.
The website's all about water and water issues and water bottles and stuff, and that's what the question is, so it's reliable.
Okay. What else makes an internet source reliable?
Also, if more than one site says the same thing, it's most likely true and there's no changes.
Okay. So you're going to say that you're going to check multiple sites. Where could you also check that fact? What would you do to check that fact?
To check that fact, I would probably Google it.
Okay.
Or you could go to the library.
You don't always have to check your facts on the internet. There's multiple ways that you could check them through print resources, through the library. You might also ask an expert.
Next, we look at how and why this fact has emerged, or the background knowledge. Then we look at the impact or implications in 3 columns: me, us or local, and others or global. Lastly, we look at actions that can be taken due to our new understandings of this fact.
We could pledge to not buy water bottles anymore.
We can write letters, we can do speeches.
Students are then sent out in groups with their own graphic organizers to critically deconstruct a fact of their choice. This fact impact will be the basis of their group podcast. Students will then use a podcast organizer to transpose their idea into auditory form. It is critical that students be given choice. Choice is the key to their engagement, their creativity, and ultimately their learning and empowerment. Within this structure, students are free to choose facts that inspire them, enrage them, or that are dear to their hearts. I find that assessment is a dynamic process. With well-created rubrics and anchors, I find that I can provide steady and regular feedback while continually grounding them in the expectations.
Ethiopia.
Oh, wow. Guys, can I just stop you for a minute there? Okay. I noticed that you're a little bit ahead of everybody else, and you're now putting in some music. So what made you pick that music, or what were you thinking about when you were choosing the music?
We were thinking about a music that best suits our lines.
Okay.
So,
And copyright free.
Copyright free, and that supports your message.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I also noticed that you were really practicing some of that language with that music, so you're using the features that we talked about, that catchy sound bites. Okay. I also noticed that you were practicing and redoing, trying to make the message simple and effective and have impact to people. So that's wonderful. Okay. And you're doing a great job. You want to just keep going?
In terms of conferencing with students, I have found that technology is invaluable for speeding up the process within my classroom. When projects are presented in digital form, students readily engage in peer editing and revision. Since the technology offers students the opportunity to quickly make changes, I find that I am conferencing less in the final stages of writing and spending more of my individual conference time front-end loaded. And let's face it, it's so much easier for students when they are on the right track to begin with. Multimedia projects offer ample opportunity for students to practice collaborative talk. It is also an opportunity for students to practice the collaborative learning cycle. Teachers will notice that groups will generally follow a pattern of brainstorming, decision-making, and peer feedback prior to any teacher feedback. Once a group gets teacher feedback, they then review and assess their product. Again, in this case, the teacher acts as a facilitator and a guide, continually offering the next step in a small, attainable manner. Further to this assessment of a written product, there is an additional level of a self-assessment that I am looking for throughout this unit.
It's going to be a simple sentence you're going to put your name on. Before I thought, and then you choose. Now I know, I understand, I see, I believe, or I can share. And you can pick out any piece or the thing that really made you grow. It can be short, it can be long. Okay, so I'd like you to just take some time now.
This simple exercise exemplifies the notion that we are supposed to change and grow and challenge our own thinking. As this is a reflective piece, students are critically analyzing their experience with the information taught in this unit. They are asked to select a point of learning, describe it, analyze it, interpret it, evaluate it, and then finally create a summative sentence. This type of metacognitive activity really makes them accountable for their own learning and even celebrates it.
Well, before I started this unit, I really didn't know how much how much water was affecting the whole world. But now after doing this, I have a bigger perspective on it and how much it is, and now I can really appreciate how much some people are trying to help it, but I also know that we still need to do a lot more to fix the crisis.
I feel like I've grown more confident and knowing that there's issues out there, and with the technology you can learn that and you can help more and go to events that you can talk about what you know and make the world more aware.
To get the water bottle problem message across even more, I introduced the Tap Water Challenge to see if my students could tell the difference between tap water and bottled water.
And you liked this one. T, tap water. You liked tap water.
This experiential learning led to a wonderful conversation about corporate control over a human right resource. After the challenge, students took action. They lobbied board officials to ban the use of water bottles at track and field events. We are proud to report that there was only one bag of waste produced from our regional track meet. To extend my students' thinking, I have found think work to be very effective. In this case, students were asked to imagine some solutions to the problem that we have with water bottles.
When you go home tonight, you have to write. I'm going to ask you to do something a little bit different. I want you to do some think work. Now, that think work means that all you have to do is think and talk about some of the ideas that you learned today. Ideas about water, about how it's not shared evenly throughout our world, how it's a precious resource that people need to have in order to survive. Also want to have you think about the corporate control of water, okay? So when you go home tonight, I want you to do just thinking and talking.
The next day, I provide them with time to brainstorm ideas with an elbow partner. We debrief as a whole class, and I record everyone's thoughts on the smartboard. Then I post a hard copy of their ideas for future discussion and reference.
Okay, just taking a look here, we did some think work, And these are some of the ideas that you guys came up with. And when I was typing them all out, I realized that I almost had to put them into a scroll because you had so many ideas. I'm going to read them back to you, and if you recognize that that was your idea, can you please put up your hand and give a little bit more explanation to the class? And remember that when we're explaining our thinking, the proof of what you thought of is the fact up there. Please explain or tell more about what you were thinking, okay? So the first one, we were talking about water issues, is that, I'm going to go right to here. Developed countries can send money to develop wells in third world countries and have people pay a wellness tax. Wow, that's a really cool idea. Next one, manufacturing plants could limit bottles to developed world and only have them in the third world. That keeps the bottle industry in business, but it funnels it to where it needs it most. Vicki?
I thought of that idea because North America is blessed with fresh water, so we don't really know what it's like to not have fresh water. So we're really greedy with it, and we can waste a lot. So if we have a limited amount, so we don't waste as much. And then whatever we don't receive is sent to the third world countries, so they have fresh water. So it's an even distribution of water around the world.
To me, it is clear that this group is full of solutions. My students noticed a problem and have devised some strategies to deal with it, just like Craig Kielberger did when he was in grade 6. We also know Craig went on to do amazing things to help bring the awareness of the issue of child labor to light. In fact, he was even nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. I believe that everyone in my room has the same potential to be a problem solver. So for the next writing activity, I challenge my students to imagine themselves in 20 years having won the Nobel Peace Prize for implementing a water solution. This writing task will be in the form of a front-page newspaper article. Students use Microsoft Publisher to create a whole front page of news. They pay careful attention to all of the features found on the front pages of newspapers. Now that you're seeing it out in print, is there anything that you would like to change about your headline?
Make it bigger.
You'd like to make it bigger. Okay, so why don't you make a note on that? Because you can do that on your computer afterwards. Okay, what did you notice about each other's headlines? Were they catchy?
Yeah, Bailey's was really good because it caught my attention.
Okay. So can you read it, the headline out here?
If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Okay.
So I used a quote that you had told us in the past. So.
Okay, so you use that catchy idea to bring it in. It makes me want to read what problem are you talking about. And how about you, Taylor?
I just put Taylor Devitt wins Nobel Peace Prize because I didn't really think of what I wanted to put on the headline. So.
Okay, so would that be something that you might want to revise now that you hear some of the other catchy ones? Once they have had a chance to talk with a partner and to brainstorm a few headlines or stories, students devise a plan for their front page in their writer's notebooks. Some students elect to use graphic organizing software such as Smart Ideas to help them plan. On an ongoing basis, I refer back to the answer sandwich and to the APEC model to help students communicate their deeper understanding of issues of social justice, humanitarianism, and character. Guiding students throughout this explicit form helps ensure that they communicate their ideas in an organized and focused way. And what we're going to do is we're going to share some of those answers, and you are going to talk to your peers about what you've noticed in their answers. And what I'd like you to take notice of, Thomas, are some of the things that we've talked about in our answer sandwich, which is that they would have these words, these signal words, that help keep our writing focused and help us explain our thinking really well. So you might look for or listen for those signal words. And the other thing that you might consider is the answer, proof, explain, and connect concept. And so you are going to take notice of other people's writing and tell them what you think they did well. Okay? Who's got one that a question and an answer that they want to share first? Okay, Thomas, we'll start with you.
The question is, how could you change people's ideas about water consumption? Use information from yesterday's experience and your own ideas to support the answer. And my answer was, you can change people's ideas about water consumption by telling them something like, Well, something that I learned, like a water bottle costs 1,000 times more than a glass of water from the tap. Then you could explain to them that bottled water is basically tap water, over 40%. Next, you could explain to them that 1/3 of the bottle filled is how much oil is used to make the bottle. And that is how you can change people's ideas about water consumption.
Thank you. So what did you notice about Thomas's answer?
That he used a lot of the answer sandwich words like then and next and that is how, and it gave him a good, strong answer.
Good. Differentiation is embedded within the whole structure of the unit. One of the key pieces is ensuring that students are able to demonstrate their learning and communicate it in a manner that they enjoy. Offering an opportunity to complete a poster appeals to the kinesthetic and visual learner. Whether it is a poster, an article, or a podcast, the product can still be assessed using many of the same criteria, such as those found within the media triangle. In order to prepare students to thrive in the future, they need to develop habits of mind, strategies, and skills that enable them to become globally minded, creative, and independent critical thinkers. Our classrooms should no longer be bound by physical walls. Through video conferencing, we not only bring experts into our class, but my students join the larger global community of learners. Using this technology, we have been instructed by scientists from NASA's Jet Propulsion Labs, toured the Smithsonian, and visited the Galapagos Islands. What an exciting time to be a learner and a teacher.
Podcasts and online newspapers were just two ways you saw technology being used as tools in Pamela's classroom. The students used the computers and programs in a responsible and purposeful way that helped them convey their own message and ultimately accomplish their goals.
I think one of the important things also is to be comfortable with the fact that as a teacher, you don't have to be the expert anymore. You don't have to know everything and even be comfortable with the technology because the students have grown up with it, so they're going to be very comfortable with it. I guess what I would recommend is that you take some time to explore the internet, to explore the websites beforehand, but be comfortable turning them loose and challenge them. You know, a lot of times there are students who jump ahead and kind of maybe get themselves far ahead of the class. Challenge those students to share their learning with the rest of the class. And there's some amazing experiences that I've seen come out of that. Them having to develop the leadership skills, and you know, if they're far ahead and they've already finished the assignment, great. Well, present your results to everyone else and help them learn from that. And those kind of interactions in the classroom can be very powerful because often learning from their peers is the way that they interact outside of school. So if you can bring some of that into the classroom, I think it'll make it much more engaging for their peers and also for those students who do have the skills and are ahead of everyone else to be able to share that with others.
So what does technology do? Technology is a catalyst. It enables more powerful kinds of pedagogy than teachers can do without technology. It enables deeper kinds of content. It enables more sophisticated forms of assessment. It enables reaching out across distance and time to bring extra resources into classrooms, types of expertise that just aren't available in the teacher alone. And skilled teachers that use technology to change instruction and assessment, to change content, and to change who participates in the learning process are able to have a tremendous impact. But the technology is always in the background. The technology is always a means to an end, not an end in itself.
Critical literacy skills are essential in communicating personally and professionally. The students in Angie Harrison's grade 2-3 class are learning to become independent, competent, and critical communicators. You'll notice Angie uses differentiated instruction to engage all of her learners.
Welcome to my grade 2-3 class. Through the gradual release of responsibility, I've delivered lessons in my literacy block that involve characteristics of different text types. Anchor charts have been created for digital stories, songs, poems, podcasts, web pages, comics, and posters. Because we've had ongoing access to technology tools, by the end of the year, students know how to independently use GarageBand, iTunes, PhotoStory, iMovie, PowerPoint, and Comic Life. In my planning, I take what I know about how my students learn, and I design a variety of authentic learning opportunities that will give each of them a chance to shine. Well, today I'm going to read one to you. There's a blueberry pancake. Especially when the learning involves any new form of text or technology, I know my students want to get to exploring on their own, so I keep my modeled and shared lessons short, focused, and explicit as possible. With my pencil crayons, I can draw it. With my pencil crayons, I can draw it. So we have a repeating lines here. This allows the learners in my room to get right to applying and practicing their new knowledge or skills as soon as possible. Once routines are in place and my literacy workstations are up and running, they self-select the stations they'll go to.
So all of us have to do comprehension and independent reading. So it's our daily plan for the morning. And then so we can't ever be done our daily plan because the writing session leads us, because we have lots of jobs in our writing folders, and then there's a free write that we do. It's a booklet. I like it a lot because in my old class we always had to run around and we didn't know what we were doing next, and this week it's just like a straight through look at our board, know what we're doing.
Literacy workstations work wonderfully for differentiating my instruction. I do have students with exceptionalities who need to get up and move around and work in partners. The workstations are independent practice time. This allows students to revisit text and expand on their thoughts. Holding them accountable for making their own choices empowers them to take responsibility for their learning. Misbehavior goes by the wayside because they have chosen how to spend their time. Time and self-monitoring management is a life skill that's sure to come in handy. In my Balanced Literacy program, students also expect to meet in small guided lessons where I have a particular focus in mind. I want you to think about, are the sequences the same, or the sequence the same in this story as what we did when we created our podcast? I'm going to ask you just to read up to page 12, up to the editing part, and I want you to think about how it compares to the sequence that we did and what was different. Okay? These frequent opportunities to conference mean there are no surprises when it comes to assessment and evaluation. By giving my students feedback, I engage them in making next steps for improvement. This helps model how learning is ongoing.
The World Podcast is a combination of the world's broadcast from radio broadcast and iPod, a popular MP3 player.
I'm going to stop you there. Remember when you can be afraid to stop. Now, you said the word podcast is a combination of the world's broadcast. Does that make sense? No. What is it? Words. So you were very close. World has an L in it, and that was just word. So that's a new word. Are you familiar with the word broadcast? No. That's what they call on the radio when you're talking. You do a broadcast that way. And then the iPod, is a little player for songs and stories. So they've taken the pod from iPod and the cast and broadcast to make the word podcast. So they've invented that word. When I introduce a new technology like a smartboard, I not only model how it works, I underline the importance of using the right tool at the right time. I also help my students understand what it means to be a responsible consumer and user of electronic information and tools. I believe that not only should I expose my students to texts of all types, my students should have an opportunity to create texts of all types. Or a poster, or a comic, or a podcast, or a digital story. So you're going to need to think about what your message is and what is the best way for you to represent that message. If I was to do a song, what software or materials would we need to make a song? The world is changing, and as it does, so do the modes of communication that we use to convey meaning. My job is to help my students make decisions about which text, images, graphics, sounds, colors, and technologies will convey the right message to the audience.
You might want to start thinking now which one you're most comfortable using, and does that fit your key message? How do you want to express your key message?
One of the added benefits of using Literacy Workstation is that my students have a chance to circulate and work with a wide range of students every day. This helps them recognize the importance of working cooperatively and collaboratively.
We pick a word that's there, we try to write it, and we check if we're right. If we're not, we try it again.
It also emphasizes the need to respect individual differences. As the 2s and 3s work on their special person project, they're applying their understanding of text forms as they create a media message for a particular audience. My students love the idea of creating a key message for a significant person in their life because it's real and meaningful. The more relevant I can make the learning, the more engaged and likely they are to succeed. And having my students share and reflect on the messages that other students are sending to their special people, my students develop an understanding that all families do not look the same. This diversity enriches the learning experience and helps my students' character development.
My Uncle Dan is amazing. My uncle is a wonderful, caring person. He likes to do tickle tortures to me. I like to sit with him. I love to talk with him.
Bringing the technologies that my students interact with outside of school into my classroom engages and motivates my students in ways I've never seen before. What's better is that I can inform how they need to use these tools responsibly. By providing my students with a range of ways to create a message for a special someone, we not only accommodate multiple learning styles, it makes meaningful connections to the arts as a form of communication.
We've done podcasts, posters.
We made some movies for our grandparents, like Happy Holidays.
Okay, we've done iMovies, and those are digital stories that we've done. That's right.
Wherever appropriate, I help my students make connections between what we're learning and the other topics or skills we've explored already. Making cross-curricular links explicit for my students deepens and gives purpose to their understanding.
So we've seen the text, we've heard the music, and now there are illustrations to go along with the song. Now, I want you to think about, are these illustrations what you expect, and do your feelings about the song change when you see it?
Through the gradual release model, every task I expect my students to perform has been modeled and practiced as a whole group and individually.
And each day you're going to be writing in or planning out your steps. So if I'm doing a podcast, for example, I would need to start my script and probably spend a few days on my script, a few days recording, and then some time editing it.
When you come into my classroom, it is not a quiet place because learning's going on. However, the conversations that you hear are accountable talk. As students work their way through workstations, they're building on one another's ideas, questioning new learning, and helping each other with the technology.
Thanks, Megan.
In addition to my guided lessons, I circulate and touch base with students as I cycle through their independent workstations. This allows me to engage them in the learning and assessment process along the way.
Have you written it on your plan?
As often as I can, I have my students think about their thinking to arrive at those aha moments right when they happen. Sometimes this is in the form of whole group discussion, think, pair, share, or individual journal or blog posting. We need our students to be independent problem solvers who can collaborate and communicate their ideas effectively. It is no longer an option to teach media literacy, it is our responsibility.
The Learning Centers provide students with the opportunity to do independent study, make choices, and think about their thinking. While engaged in active learning, they also have time for reflection, talk, and self-assessment.
one of the things that's made us so successful in the last century here in North America is our innovation, our entrepreneurship, our creativity. And I think that it's important to instill that spark in them, to really not make sure they don't have a fear of failure, but instead feel encouraged to try something, if they have an idea, to follow it, to create an organization, to start a business. I started my first company in grade 3 or grade 4, and it was a complete failure. But I was lucky to be surrounded with a teacher, parents, people that were supportive and said, well, try again next time, try it again. And it ended up a few companies later having a great success. So I think if you can encourage them to not be afraid of failure and to follow their dreams and believe in their ideas, there's many examples out there, hundreds of examples of amazing things that have happened as a result of that. And young people that are now leading world-changing organizations thanks to one thing their teacher said to them. So if you can be that teacher, you have hundreds of students you can be that person for, the world will be a completely different place.
Through popular music, traditional classics, and jingles, music speaks to us. Students in Rolando's grade 5 class are discovering the power of music as a communication tool.
Welcome to my grade 5 class. I have a very energetic, creative, and expressive group of students who embrace the use of music, drama, and dance in my program. By exploring the meaning behind the messages of popular music artists and videos that they listen to and watch at home, they are developing the critical thinking skills they need to make sense of the multimedia world around them. We've done a really great job of trying to understand the messages and the meaning of the words in lyrics and what the artists, what the musicians were trying to convey to us, what they were trying to tell us. In this particular unit, we are exploring how music is another form of text that communicates a message. So I want you to start thinking about some of the things that we did when we did these lyrics together, and I didn't listen to the music to start off with. I started by looking at the lyrics and reading them, and I want you to do that today as a group, thinking about what the lyrics mean, what the words mean, what they're trying to tell us. And then we're going to have a really neat chance of listening to the music and thinking about how the music changes what the song, what the lyrics might mean for you. So you really need to think about what the lyrics are trying to say and what they're trying to do. Think about how certain words give you, make you think about certain things in your life that perhaps you can connect to. Active engagement with music adds an element of differentiation to my instruction that meets the diverse needs of the learners in my classroom. It appeals to most students because music is an important part of their lives. As a culminating task, students will have a chance to compose lyrics, add music, and actually perform a song that raises awareness about embracing diversity. Before they do that, though, I want to start by showing them how songs and music of different genres send a message using tempo, dynamics, and tone colors. But my students don't come to my class knowing this technical vocabulary, so I need to gradually release that knowledge and skill to them. Do you think it's going to be a slow song, largo? Do you think it's going to be, a song that's going to have certain type of instruments? And why are those instruments in this particular song? How is that going to change? We've talked about how in this particular song, we had the banjo right off the bat. Remember that? And everybody was like, wow, that really changed the way we thought about the song, didn't it? We were reading it and it was like, oh, it's this, it's that, it's the other. It was a very happy song. And then all of a sudden, we heard how the tone colors, how the dynamics, how the tempo of that song made it very sad. It actually made me think about something that was very sad in my life. So I want you to think about making personal connections to the lyrics today. I begin by tapping into how music makes them feel. First, from the perspective of lyrics only, then from the perspective of lyrics and music together. We begin by analyzing lyrics to a country and western song, only they don't know the genre ahead of time. As I read the lyrics aloud, I make my thinking explicit to my class by posting thought bubbles around the lyrics. I make sure to make a connection to the poems we have been reading in our independent reading. And I would like you to think about some of the words and some of the language that we've been using over the last few days and weeks, and use this language and some of the stuff that you have been doing together with me to make a prediction, not only on the genre of the music, but what you think, based on what you've learned and discussed about the lyrics now, will be the tempo. Is this going to be a song that's going to be largo? Or is it going to be largo and moderato? Both. Perhaps you could tell me what kind of instruments you think would be best suited for this type of song and why. You might even jot note just some ideas as to why you think perhaps this song might have drums. Maybe an acoustic guitar. Will it be two singers, maybe a female and a male, singing to each other? I don't know. Possibly. What kind of dynamics do you see in this song? Is it going to be a very piano song, quiet? Or is it going to be loud, forte? I really want you to think about that. Take your time. This is an independent activity. So just jot note some ideas. And then when you're done, think very carefully back to our web when we first started this unit, and think back to the different music genres that we have been thinking about and talking about. Is this going to be a pop song? Is it going to be hip hop? Why? Why not? Is it going to be punk rock? Maybe rhythm and blues? Think very carefully of the different genres we've talked about already and some of the lyrics, the patterns we saw in the lyrics. This is an opportunity to show students how skills learned during the literacy block are transferable to all content areas and to their lives outside of the school. I need something that's very important. I want you to give me evidence from the text, from this lyric, from the lyrics here that we've been talking about this morning, that would support your ideas. If you think this is going to be a song that's going to be largo, what in here gives you that information? Anchor charts keep track of our learning and can be referred to by students for future reference. Integrating the arts into my program exposes students to new ways of thinking, critically and creatively, by helping them develop higher order thinking skills through drama, music, and dance in class. In order for our students to thrive in the future, and in order for them to be active in making their world a better place, they need to believe that individuals can make a difference. They need to understand that there are many ways to take action. Knowing how to communicate effectively is an essential skill that they will need to be successful personally and professionally. Our grade 5 students embrace individual difference and feel that it's everyone's responsibility to treat one another with respect. To get this message across, we studied effective forms of communication, including music. During their study, students looked at a variety of media, including pieces of music, to determine what made them effective. Students applied their new learning by creating a piece of music about treating people as equals.
It's not what you wear. It's all about the special things that we all share.
They learned to use appropriate vocabulary about the isms to create their message. Students became aware of the techniques creators of media use to influence their audiences. This learning helps students enjoy their music more completely, and they could also enhance the music they compose by applying their new knowledge. By studying and respecting individual differences, it was easy for students to become passionate and genuinely interested in their learning. They were motivated to ask themselves, now that I know this, what can I do? Their experiences during the study changed their thinking and behavior. They were able to use their new skills and understandings to convey messages that were important to them. In this lesson, you will notice that students are applying strategies they are familiar with, such as making predictions, finding supporting evidence, and drawing on prior knowledge for decisions they are making when responding to the text. Think about what other words like fickle little smile.
Oh, we
What does
thought of
that
something
mean?
like that, like so, like
one time she's like loving him, so she sang songs to him, and I played the drum with her. But the next day she's like saying, "It's over, I don't want to be your girlfriend anymore."
Wonderful idea. I want to see that right on there. Put it right in there. That's great.
The brain and the heart are connected together because love intertwines with your thoughts and everything.
Students prepare to meet the citizen band and discuss their responses to My Code Song in comparison to the band's intent.
We think that the song would mean that time he says such a fickle smile. He is happy with her until she says, "Just let me know when you're gonna go." At the end, when he says, "Sing me that song again," he says he's sorry.
To get me to walk a mile means that he would do anything for her.
Following the performance, students will have an opportunity to interview the band members. In teacher-assigned groups of 5, students take turns role-playing mock interviews with the band members. And you're going to be assuming the role of a band member, and one person in your group is actually going to be the reporter that's going to be asking some questions to the band members. So I'm going to break you up into groups of 5, and you are going to assume one of these roles. Thinking about all of the thoughts that you placed on your graphic organizer, I now want you to, in your role, so if you are Dave and you're the trumpet player, I want you to think of yourself as Dave the trumpet player, and I want you to ask yourself, as Dave the trumpet player, a question that you would want to ask Dave. Thinking about also what kind of an answer you're going to give to that question, because then after we're going to actually role play, and the questions are all going to go back to the reporter. So the reporter is not going to write all the questions. You're actually going to set yourself up and ask yourself a question as a band member. Even the reporter is going to ask a question. And the reporter can choose anybody that they want to ask a question to. You need to ask the question. I want your name on the card as well, so we can take a look at these questions together afterwards. So let's think about some questions that might lead to some really interesting answers using the thoughts that we put on our graphic organizers. Is there anybody that has perhaps an idea of a question right now that might be an interesting question to ask one of our band members?
I'm David, the guitarist, lead vocalist, and I wonder how David decided how to make the song, if it was based on his life or one of his group members.
Now that we are starting to understand the type of questions that we need to ask, thinking about the questions chart and thinking about asking questions that, unless we had those people right here, we could not get answers to, really interacting with the band members and getting them to give us their own personal thoughts and ideas and why they did what they did and wrote what they wrote. That's what we want to hear. So I really want you now to go on in your groups and start thinking about some of those types of questions that you might ask in your roles. And I really would like the reporter to be a person to help you write some of those questions as well. So the reporter, since you're not an actual band member and you're not playing the role of one of these people, you can help these people come up with their questions as well. All right? Let's begin that task right now.
John, is it hard to play the drums while singing? And does it change the way you play the drums or the way you sing?
No, it doesn't, because years of practice and experience.
Do you compose your own notes? And if you do, does it sound different when you play it?
Yes, I compose my own notes, and it sometimes sounds different depending on the notes I write, and mostly the time it sounds the same as I want it.
Thank you, the Citizen Band, for your time.
No problemo.
A big thank you to the Citizen Band for coming out today and giving us a really great performance.
Places where my heart's been, can't compare now that you're under my skin. I'd like to write beautiful story about love and how it came to me.
As you know, band, we have been working really hard at understanding your lyrics and reading the lyrics and trying to understand how you guys put this song together. Today, we would like to put all our ideas together and have some of our students have a chance to ask you some questions with regards to your music.
I have a question for Lenny. Lenny, how do you think music has changed your life?
I'm not sure if it has changed my life, but I can certainly say it's enhanced my life. When you start to play music, I mean, we're all familiar with music, but I don't know how many of you actually play instruments now. If you ever do start to play an instrument, you'll learn that it gives you the opportunity to be very creative and to express yourself and to learn a new skill. So I can definitely say that it hasn't changed me, but it's added to me as a person. And I encourage all of you to practice.
I have two questions. The first question is for Dave, the trumpet player. Do you have to compose your own notes for your trumpet? And if you do, does it sound different when you play it?
The answer to your question is yes, I absolutely have to compose my own notes. Biggest problem I have is that these guys, the guitarists, they play in a different key than I play. I can't even ask them what notes they're playing. So I have to listen to what they're doing and try to think in my head of what might sound good on my trumpet, and that's what I try to play. Does it come out differently from what I want it to come out? Usually on the first time, it's going to come out a little differently than I imagined it in my head. But I got to keep practicing and keep trying different things, and eventually I figure out which notes to play. It's a very fun process, and it's probably my favorite part about playing in this band, that they never tell me what to play. I always get to make it up myself.
Students were able to ask the Espers their burning questions and then apply their new learning to the creation of an original piece of music. Students will compose a concert review article that would appear in the Grade 5 magazine, applying what they have learned about reviews and interview questions. As a culminating task, students are presented with the challenge of composing song lyrics and using ministry-licensed music composition and recording software, for example, Band in a Box, Music Ace, or Finale, to select appropriate tempo, dynamics, and tone colors to convey their message. The rubric for the task is shared, and the students are provided with a tracking sheet, which describes the check-in points and tasks that need to be completed along the way. A note is sent home to parents describing the final performance opportunity. Appropriate use guidelines are reviewed, and parent permission forms are verified to ensure students gain responsible access to the blogging activity. Through the creation of the Citizen Band blog project, students have the ability to consult with the band members as they make decisions about the music for their songs. This authentic performance task concludes with the opportunity to perform their songs live on stage for student and parent audiences.
It's not how you walk, it's not how you look, it's not where you come from, it's not what you wear, it's all about the special things that we all share.
The students worked with the Artist in the School program musician Greg Lawless. Through the creation of songs, students gained a deeper understanding of the techniques musicians use to communicate information and emotions. Using music as a tool allows students to think on many different levels, from the fine details to the big picture. It also allows for thinking to move between both the real and imagined worlds that inspire creative expression.
The new literacies aren't solely intellectual. They also involve different kinds of character. We're now not only citizens of our own local setting or our own country, we're citizens of the world because of things like global climate change or international terrorism. Our actions have an enormous impact all across the world. And so having a set of values and a shared vision for where we want to take our fragile planet is a very important part of these new literacies. And that emotional and attitudinal foundation shapes the intellectual kind of skills that are required. Doing inquiry and doing critical thinking might seem purely intellectual, but they're not. They build a lot on the character of the person doing them, on their integrity, on their ability to be sensitive to moral and ethical nuances. So education is complex now because it's intellectual, emotional, and psychosocial all at the same time.
One of the opportunities I think we have, because we live in such a diverse society here in Canada, is to really use the internet and technology to help students connect back to their own countries, countries where other students might be from, countries or places they're learning about. There's so many opportunities to connect with other teachers and other classes and schools, even just the other young people around the world who are doing similar things to your students, and develop collaborations or work with them to be able to kind of learn together and have the students exposed to a different point of view. So I think there's tremendous opportunity out there to expand what community means. It doesn't have to be the school community, but really exposing the students to a global community. Because in the future, their work, their life will be so much more global, and already is because of the internet, because of technology, than it ever has been in the past. So you have a great opportunity to prepare them for that.
So interaction-wise, we've certainly changed. And in a classroom, it's very pronounced now. I'm aware of several classroom projects where they're seeking to take groups of students from around the world and create individually, each classroom is basically networked. So you might have a class from Toronto, Winnipeg, New York, Los Angeles, Malaysia, or other countries of the world, and students are learning not just the content, but they're also learning the procedure of being learners. They're learning the value of diverse viewpoints and perspectives. They're starting to become aware of other cultures in a sense that they perhaps didn't need to be aware of when the world was geographically confined.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you'll take a moment to reflect on the key messages shared during this webcast. What ideas do you think will have a lasting effect on your thinking and practice? How will you include a deliberate focus on character and citizenship development in your thinking and practice? What changes will you make to your current practice in order to support today's learners for tomorrow's world? Please join us next month as we learn about the teaching-learning critical pathway.